Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Jovia Financial Credit Union, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO, keeper of the brand, marketing and digital agency.
We're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. We bring you weekly business advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview some of the top business leaders in the industry.
Now, today is going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited.
Ooh, yeah.
We're going to have a very exciting and fun and engaging conversation with Alisha Fernandez Miranda. She is the author of the new book, My What If Year, a lively, a funny, and inspiring memoir that recounts Alisha's adventures as she takes leave from her CEO-level job and explores her what-if dream job.
Ooh, la la.
Yeah, it is so cool. So, why don't we just kick things off? Just tell us a little bit about yourself, Alisha.
Let's do it. Thank you guys so much for having me. So I am originally from Miami, Florida. My dad is an immigrant from Cuba. My mom's a nice Jewish girl from North Miami Beach. And, I grew up very ambitious, very type A kid with always a real sense of responsibility. I wanted to do all the things and do them the best I possibly could. So I went to Harvard. I ended up working in the field of kind of philanthropy and social impact. So consulting to big companies, wealthy people, families, and foundations on how to give away their money in a positive way to help the planet and help the world, and set up my own business with my husband and was CEO of that business. And that was pretty much my life on this kind of treadmill track until 2019, when I had this idea that I was feeling really stuck in spite of the fact that I sort of had everything on paper, that I just felt like I needed to explore these what ifs that were in my head, these things that I had always dreamed about doing and trying. And then feeling very guilty that I wasn't just happy with what I was doing and going around in circles for a while until I decided, all right, I'm going to take these unpaid internships, the jobs I always wanted to do, and see what happens. And that is what I did.
Sounds like a movie in the making.
Oh, definitely.
Let's hope.
That would be so great. And like all great ideas, so there's two ways that great ideas happen. One is in the shower.
Okay.
And the other is when you're drinking with friends.
Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
So why don't you tell us about the origination of this? You were drinking with your friends, and then what's that conversation? Where does that go?
So I was with my two best girlfriends, my college roommates. We were in London. One of them had just left her job and picked up with her husband and her 10-month-old baby to travel the world for a year. And we were sort of all together in this magical child-free zone with the martinis flowing. And so, we started dreaming, I think, like you do with friends and with martinis. And so, we sort of started talking about what would you do if you could do anything you wanted. And I said, I have this really weird fantasy. I would love to be an intern on a Broadway musical, because I've always loved musicals since I was a kid. My parents love musicals. I grew up with them, never ever done anything in that kind of field in my life. And I just said to them, I said, I'd do anything. I would fold playbills. I would clean toilets. I would scrape gum off the bottom of the seats. And so they were like, yeah, you could go be an intern. It's like, I could go be an intern. So we had this long, very funny conversation about all the different jobs that we would try. On that long list was things like shrimp boat captain and architect and reality show producer. And then we woke up the next morning and we kind of just left it because we all had to go back to our real lives and our responsibilities. But it wasn't enough for me to just leave it. So I started planning. I spent about 8 months thinking I could never possibly do this. And then eventually thinking maybe I could just try one. And then I started kind of putting the plan into place and doing all the things I needed to do to get an unpaid internship as a experienced CEO. It was much harder than you might think.
No, I can imagine. And so you call this a coming of middle age story. And I love the way that you put that. You're much too young for that, but I love the way that you put that. What do you mean by this, though?
I appreciate that because I think my kids think I'm like the oldest person in the world because I'm over 30.
That's natural.
To them, I'm like, I could not be older. I think I do feel quite young. But I think middle age I'm certainly entering that middle stage of my life. I am no longer a young person. I certainly can't, there's a lot that I can't claim in that younger. I'm already in like the next bracket of age categories when I have to check that box. And so this was, for me, it was really this experience. A lot of it, I think, was catalyzed by turning 40 and feeling like, okay, I'm entering this new stage in my life. What am I going to do now? And so I liked that expression. It's a little bit funny. It reminds me of those coming of age stories that you read when teenagers are turning into adults, because it sort of felt like, in a way, that's what I was getting the chance to do through these what if experiences. It was like when I was a teenager and everything was unwritten and it was complicated and weird and you felt strange all the time, but also it was like magical and the world was full of possibilities. And that is what it felt like for me when I was going through it.
But so tell us a little bit about the friends' reaction, your family's reaction. Did they think you were just out of your mind and insane?
I mean, yes, absolutely. But I think it was funny. There was like a mix of reactions. A lot of people were just like, why on earth would you want to do this? You've got the stuff that you're supposed to have. You've got a great job. I was running my own business, so I had a lot of flexibility, which was also great for being a parent. And so there was a lot of that. A lot of my friends, though, who are women around my same age, similar kind of accomplished career paths, had become mothers. And I think that there was a lot of jealousy, and not like in a mean way, but in a good way, people thinking, wow, I would love to do that. And then immediately, what would I do if I could do an internship anywhere? I would want to do this. I would want to do that. I want to work at a fashion magazine. I want to be an architect. And it was really heartening because it made me feel like I wasn't crazy, like even though the idea was kind of crazy, but I wasn't crazy because this was something that other people around me were also feeling. My husband took some convincing, in part because this was going to mean he had to stay with the kids for a long period of time while I was off having my adventures. But eventually he came around and he was like totally my rock through this entire process.
And you also had to find another CEO while that's going on too.
That's true. I mean, I sort of took these mini breaks. We had an amazing managing director we had kind of nurtured her through the business for a while. And she is now the CEO of the business. And she really stepped up during that time. She did an incredible job and we worked well together. And I think, it's hard when you start your own business to let it go. And I think if I hadn't done this, it would have been a lot harder. But having this experience really kind of pushed me to be like, okay, if I want to see what else is out there for my career, I'm going to have to let go of the reins a little bit. And so that was a good thing. I think it's been a good thing for all of us.
And what did you learn from your experience? Did it change your family and life dynamics, family and friends?
I mean, my whole life now looks completely different from what it did before I started this. I live in a different city. My work days are now full of doing amazing stuff like this, talking to you guys on the radio and writing. And several of my internships actually ended up becoming paid gigs. So I'm still working with the art dealer. I'm still working with the hotel a little bit. I'm still doing a little bit on my old business on IG, but from a more step back capacity. And so my entire definition of success changed. I think I had always thought of success as this title, the package, the next big job, the next big paycheck. And those things are important. But I think that part of this experience made me realize it wasn't the only way to define success. There are other things that I need to be thinking about to define success, like how happy and fulfilled am I in my job? How much am I learning? Do I have space for my family and to be creative and space for myself and to support the people that are working for me and with me? And so I just completely changed how I thought about that. And I think, in terms of my family, I think my kids who thought this experience was, not something the other moms were doing for sure. But, I think they're really proud of me now. And I think, I'll hear them say things like, oh, well, for my first job I want to do is this, but then I might try something else after. And I love that. I love that I have sparked this idea in them that maybe you don't have to just pick one thing and do it forever. Maybe you can work hard, but also explore different paths, build skills that are transferable and use them to try out different things.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to me in that regard. I mean, I'm in the financial services field, but I feel like everyone that you meet always has other passions and other dreams that they want to pursue. And I think the book is very inspiring in that degree. It really makes you think about, well, what would my what if year be like? So
what would it be?
Well, for me, it would probably be working in movies. I'm a big movie buff.
That's awesome.
So it's
Spielberg in the making.
Yes.
All right. When they make this a movie, you can come intern on the production, and then we'll be all set.
I'll be a PA.
Done.
Toilets, whatever you need. I'm coffee, whatever you need. I'm there.
Got it.
Crafty services.
I would love it. I would love it. Now, there you mentioned the art dealers. So there are some very funny, and I'm sure they weren't funny at the time. I'm sure they were not. Very stressful. It's very suspenseful too, the way that you lay things out. So I don't want you to give away everything. I want people to read the book. But can you tell us one of those stories about how it really went from like you being in control of your life to now you're just experiencing something totally new, and it's a little stressful. Tell us your craziest story.
I mean, I made so many mistakes in all of my internships. I think the one that really stands out for me is my final internship was at a hotel and restaurant in the Isle of Skye in Scotland, a beautiful, very remote place. This is a place people come for a completely relaxing getaway, the highest levels of service. And I was just like a hot mess the whole time. Every time, I was in the restaurant serving food. Food was falling off of plates. Coffee was spilling on people. At one point, I almost set my shirt on fire. My chest got very close to the open candle. And the woman had to tell me to step back because there was like smoke coming off of my shirt. And my absolute most embarrassing moment for sure was checking a couple in to the hotel. They've just traveled this very long way. I'm really trying to make them feel comfortable. And I accidentally take them to the wrong room. And in the room is a man completely naked, enjoying some wine. And I had to quickly shut the door and back up and be like, oh, this is definitely not your room. Someone came in, thank God, and saved me and took me to the right room number. But oh my God, I was embarrassed. Even now, like my cheeks are turning red thinking about it. I've written about it. Everyone who reads the book is going to read about it. And yet it's still so embarrassing. And there were just so many moments like that where I was completely out of my depth. I was not good at the thing I was doing. And I needed a lot of help and support from other people around me to figure out how to not be a complete failure at it.
You are listening to Tara Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, and our guest today is Alisha Fernandez Miranda, author of the new memoir, My What If Year. I wonder if the man who is drinking that wine in that position will read the book.
I hope not.
Now, what did you enjoy just going into the writing of the book? Like, what did you enjoy most about kind of putting together all your experiences into this narrative?
The idea of writing a book was really not something I took very seriously for a long time because it just seemed like this fantasy. Like I could write a whole book and see people would want to read it. It was not something I had done probably since I was a kid. But I knew that I was going to have an amazing experience. And so I really wanted to journal it. I took very kind of detailed notes of every day. Every day I got home from whatever internship I was doing, and I would spend like at least an hour kind of writing down in my diary everything that had happened because I knew it was something special. I knew it was something that I was going to want a record of because I was going through this big change. And even if I didn't know how it was going to end, I was going to want to be able to tell the story, maybe to like my grandkids one day. And I did my first internship in New York. I was shadowing 2 musicals. I was having the time of my life. And all of this was taking place at the beginning of March 2020. So I was also in New York for theaters being shut down, everybody going into lockdown, and having to rush home and go back into this very kind of strange world. And so after all the planning, all the preparation, all the hopes and dreams I had put into this year, I was all of a sudden at home, could not leave the house, didn't know when I was going to see my parents in the US again, and homeschooling my children, trying to keep the businesses afloat, and just really feeling very, very down about everything. I think as we all were at that time. And my husband said to me, he was like, are you going to write something about your experience in New York? And I said, no, I can't. It's too soon. Like, it's too emotional. And he said, all right, well, you might change your mind. And sure enough, I did. He tends to be right about those sorts of things. And when I started writing it in kind of feeling like a story that I was telling, it was so amazing. It took me out of lockdown. It took me out of those really dark days of COVID. I did another internship, a virtual one during lockdown. I worked for a retro dance and fitness company who was just setting up their virtual fitness. So all of it took place in my living room. And after I finished that, and I did a big Dear Diary for that too, I wrote about that too. And then I just kind of gradually found that I was loving the writing, and that putting it down on paper as if it were a story was helping me process the experience I was having. So I did that for each of the 4 internships. And then I got to the end and I was like, oh, this book has an ending. Now I need to go back and write the whole thing. And maybe it's actually going to be a book. And so I really loved being able to be creative, and I loved using the page and words to work through this like very emotional time that I was having. I think it helped me a lot.
And what advice would you give other authors going through the same experience?
Well, I don't know if anybody could go through the same experience.
I know.
That was something. I mean, think about it. You went through an experience that was unique in itself, and then throw in a pandemic, a global pandemic. On top of that.
When the pandemic hit, what were you thinking? Like, was this the right time? Was it the best time? Was it like, what was your emotions?
Before I left for New York, things were like already starting to happen. Like, obviously things in China had been happening for a while. In Italy, stuff was starting up, and I was in such denial. The whole time I was in denial. And every day, things were happening very quickly at that time. And every day my husband would be like, okay, well, there's closing down schools in Ireland, or, the Netherlands has just gone into lockdown, and I've just bought 5 kilograms of pasta, just so things like that. And I was just like, nope, this is like la, 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 like fingers in my ear. This isn't happening. Everything's going to be fine. It can't possibly ruin this big plan that I've had for myself. And then when it all happened and it all went down, and it became very, very clear that we weren't going anywhere for a while, and I had a second internship lined up, and it was canceled about a couple weeks into lockdown. I felt like I really don't see any path forward for this. But at the same time, I thought, I have got to keep trying. I have to do something. If I don't, I don't know. I had put so much emphasis on this plan being the thing that was going to get me to the next stage of my life, to my career. The idea of it not being something I could do anymore, I couldn't face it. So I ended up getting my second internship. It was in fitness, as I said. It was not a field that I had really planned on interning in, but it just so happened that a friend of mine who had set up a business was pivoting to virtual fitness. And I just reached out to her and I was like, can I please intern for you? And she said yes. And I loved it. I did all kinds of different exercise classes in my living room from all over the world. And it was like the thing I needed to help me going. Once I had done 2, I felt like I had the momentum. But the idea of giving it up, in spite of the fact that on every logical thing was probably like, oh my God, just give this up and like figure out how to get through this pandemic. I just couldn't. I couldn't let it go. I knew I needed it. I knew the alternative was it was not going to put me in a good place. And things were already so terrible. I was like, nope, I got to keep going. And I'm so, so glad that I did.
We are too. As you're reading the book, we're definitely rooting for you and excited about where it's going. And so you alluded to it. We talked about a couple of positions that you took on. But what were the scope of the positions? Because you had the intern at in Broadway. You had you waitressing, and so just give us kind of the rundown of all the jobs you did during this time.
Oh my God. Whew. I mean, I approached everybody that I said, I was like, I really want you to treat me as an intern. Even in some cases when these were people I had known or been friends with, I said, I don't want any special treatment, and I don't want you to treat me with kid gloves. Like, I want to do everything an intern would do because that's the way I'm going to learn. So let's see. I filled up water bottles and got coffees and teas for a number of Broadway actors and producers. I swept floors. I arranged music stands. At one point, probably the highlight of my internship in Broadway was that I got to tape pockets into a purse that was going to be used in the actual show, which I just found very exciting to be able to do that. I folded underwear and laundry for the new productions that were coming in. I did social media posts for the fitness internship. And my main job was filling out this giant spreadsheet that was kind of giving Frankie, my boss, all the information about all of the different virtual fitness classes that were available. So how much did it cost? What was the class? What was the theme of the class? What platform were they using to do virtual fitness? And then I took all of these classes and like reviewed them. I don't even know how helpful that was for her, but I loved it because I got to do all kinds of different weird fitness classes. So lots of filling out of spreadsheets and helping with budgets and things like that. And then when I went to the art dealership, that was a startup business. So it was really just anything and everything that needed to be done. I was taking paintings across town and picking up other paintings and bringing them back to the office. I was doing a ton of research about different artists and where a particular painting had been, where it had been displayed. I was learning a lot of new French vocabulary because you really do need to know French to work in the art world, and I know zero French. And so I was definitely studying up on that and going to see a lot of art as well to kind of more familiarize myself with what I was doing. And occasionally going for taking their dog for a walk. That was part of my job too. And then, at Kinloch, the hotel, as I said, so I did, I was polishing silverware, folding napkins. Those were like my two main jobs. They were actually the only things I was good at in that hotel because they involved in no interaction with other people and no carrying of things. And it was, serving coffee and tea. There was some waitressing and running things back and forth from the kitchen. I was checking people in and out poorly. I was making drinks at the bar. I was in the back office helping file things and alphabetize things. So much filing. So really like your standard gamut of intern tasks. But honestly, it is the best way to learn about any industry. I mean, I think there's a reason why when you start at the beginning, you kind of, get thrown everything. And yes, part of that is like convenience of the person that you're interning for, but also there is no better way to learn, I think, about a company than to try everything, support everybody, because if you are attentive and you listen and you pay attention, you can learn a lot about how to run a particular type of business.
You're listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Alisha Fernandez Miranda, author of the new memoir, My What If Year. My name is Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Now, what was that moment that you went through when you said to yourself, because I'm sure that along the way, yes, of course you're going to doubt yourself because you're doing all these crazy things you'd never thought you'd do. But what was that one moment where you said, you know what, this is it. This is the reason I did this. I'm so grateful I did this. Can you describe that to us?
It came really close to the end. I had already completed 3.5 internships. I was almost done with my final internship. And I realized that I was feeling better. I was feeling happier than I had felt in a long time. I was feeling more fulfilled. I had learned so much already. And, I had an interaction with the son of Isabella, who's the owner of Kinloch Lodge. And he sort of asked, why does she want to do this? Like, Alisha has such an impressive resume. Like, why is she doing this? And I thought so much about his question. And it occurred to me that a lot of people had asked me throughout the year, like, why are you doing this? And I made up lots of different excuses. Oh, I'm turning 40. Oh, I really need a break. Oh, I love being an unpaid intern. I can't wait to get paper cuts, But the serious answer of why I was doing it, that I had felt stuck or that I had felt like I needed a change, that felt very, very scary. So I thought a lot about his question. And then I also thought about a second question, which is, why is it that I have had more fun? I have been more engaged. I have felt more kind of alive professionally in the last several months of doing all these internships than I have in years. And what does that really mean? And what does that mean that I have to do for the rest of my career, or at least the next stage of my career? And for me, it meant I had to make a change. I could not just go back into what I was doing before. I couldn't just pretend that this was going to be a fun little vacation and then come back in. It was the beginning of what needed to be a big change in my career, a change in my life, a pivot, if you will. And I needed to do it. And I had to stop being afraid of it. And I just had to make it happen.
And so you've been through a lot. Is it ever too late to take a what if year?
No, it's never too late. I think everybody should take a what if something if they can manage it. I mean, look, I know that a lot of people are going to listen to this and read the book and think, oh, the last thing I would ever want to do is go be an intern anywhere. And I get that. This is not everybody's, strange fantasy, but the feeling behind it of kind of going back to the beginning, of exploring things that are out of your comfort zone, of chasing the things that bring you joy, of not being afraid to fail. Anybody can do those things in whatever way they want to at any age and at any time. So I hope that this sparks a whole load of people taking their what if moments, whether that is learning how to surf or going back to painting, which they've never done before, or trying a job that they've always been interested in and never thought that they could do. Whatever that is, I just think life is too short to not take your what ifs. So I am a big, big fan. Obviously, I hope everybody else does the same.
And what's next for you? So hopefully, like we said, there's the movie adaptation that's directed by Steven Spielberg where I'll be a PA.
Yeah, 100%.
So hoping for that. I'll even take a Netflix miniseries, whatever, Hey, look, I'm there. But
I need an acting role in the movie.
Denisha needs an acting role.
Perfect. Okay.
Yep.
I've got the perfect role for you, actually.
Thank you. There we go.
You could be one of my bosses. You could be like you could play my friends. We could be drinking martinis together. That would be really fun.
I think she likes that role. Yes. But in all seriousness, what is next for you?
So immediately next, I'm going on book tour, which I'm so excited about. I think I really wanted to celebrate this book with a lot of what if themed events. So I will be in New York next week, which is the week of the launch week of the book, February 7th. And we're doing a dance class and we're having make your own martinis. And, it's not your traditional book events, I think. And then I'm down in Miami and we've got laser tag and music. I've got a house concert in Houston and a Mardi Gras headdress making in New Orleans. So it's really all about sparking creativity and joy. So I'm super excited to meet readers of the book, to catch up with friends and family, and to just kind of celebrate the idea of a what if. And so that's coming. I'm working on a novel right now, which is much harder than I thought it was going to be, but I'm taking my time with it and trying to push myself and not be afraid to fail and listen to all my good lessons from my internship year. And then I'm doing just all sorts of interesting things. A lot of opportunities have sprung up for me as a result of doing these internships with the organizations I interned with and with others. And so I am trying to pursue things that feel slightly uncomfortable, that I know are going to force me to learn. Obviously good to make a little money too. And you know what? I keep throwing myself at different internships. Just yesterday, I was speaking to somebody who's saying she's starting her own theatrical producing investment company. And I was like, do you need an intern? I can be there this summer. Would you like me to come and intern for you? I won't charge you anything. So who knows? I may end up interning again. I would love to. Actually, I hope that I can.
Well, we're excited. The book is a really enjoyable read. It's a wonderful memoir. It's a lot of fun, and we for two cannot wait for what comes next, and we're very excited. So thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you spending time with us. We really enjoyed it.
It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
We'd like to leave you with DB's philosophy. I'm starting to think, Ray, that it's what if. But for so many reasons, so many things are possible as long as you don't know they are impossible. Mildred Taylor.
We want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-host and producers. Visit nccradio.org for more information. We're available on Odyssey, TuneIn, iHeartRadio as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.